no, no. I do declare.
Go ahead.
Ahead. So we're live now. In fact, twitching, as it were.
Yeah. Hi, we are live. We're still working on getting the Twitch hosting set up properly, but we are now streaming on Facebook and YouTube. This is the JourneyQuest Kickstarter 4 campaign, of course. Matt has our current total up on the screen.
Yes, let me see. Click the little refreshy button, see if it's changed.
Yeah. It was changing really quickly this morning.
This morning.
Okay. So, yeah, we're over 70%, which is a huge victory. We've raised over 25 grand today.
That's incredible.
Since this morning. So that's amazing. Of course, so I'm Ben. I'm here in the studio with Matt Vancil.
Hello.
This is a big treat. Matt is the showrunner. Matt is the creator. Matt is the brains behind the operation. He is wearing his human suit today.
That I am.
No green orcish coming through at the moment. This may change. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt with an initial question while I do a little more tech support.
Sure.
And, oh, it's that camera. Hi. So anyway, what I'd love to start with is, this has come up a few times, is that first time. Now, the way I remember the story, maybe this is wrong, you were on a train or a bus back from a pitch session in Los Angeles.
I was on a train.
You were on a train. Was it Comic-Con maybe?
It
was Comic-Con.
Yes.
So I would love it if you could share the original story of the JourneyQuest inception.
Sure. So it was Comic-Con 2009, I believe. It was our second Comic-Con in a row that Dead Gentleman at that time had a presence at. We didn't have a booth. We just had a couple of screenings. And the second time around, we were actually working the booth for a movie called Mystery Team, which was the feature debut of a group of internet sketch comedy writers called Derek Comedy, the most successful member of which is a fellow named Donald Glover, who we got to meet before he started writing for 30 Rock, won an Emmy for that, then left to do Community, and he's done pretty well since then. Anyway, we also had a couple of screenings that were there. We were working the booth because Jeremy Spray and my wives at the time worked for a distribution company called Roadside Attractions that was representing the film, and they had the presence there. So we went down to help work the booth, which was good because we were also screening a couple of Dead Gentleman films at the time. And the Comic-Con was massive. It was too much con for us. I've never been in a situation where I could not actually move through the aisles of a convention just due to the press of bodies there. I think someone calculated out that if we had walked the entirety of the con, slaloming between, down the aisles to visit every booth, we would have walked, I think, 4 miles or something. So just an improbable, impossible amount. You would have had something like 2 minutes, 45 seconds with each booth if you were there the entire time that the hall was open. Anyway, that's a lot of equivocation, getting away from the story. How was JourneyQuest born? So there was a fellow I knew at the convention who had a successful web series that I was hoping to meet up with and just couldn't because of the press. I mean, not reporters or anything, just the press of bodies and whatnot. And didn't get a chance to meet at the con, and on the way back afterwards was feeling frustrated. That in itself wasn't much of anything. The not meeting up at the con, just it was sort of not the final straw, but one that had reached a near critical mass of frustrations in Hollywood and trying to get stuff done within the studio system. The previous year, in 2008, the year in 2007, I got out of film school, coinciding perfectly with the writer's strike of that era.
Which meant that there were no jobs available.
No jobs available, which, and even if the strike hadn't been going on, that doesn't mean it would have been effectively any easier to get anything made.
Right.
I mean, at that point, if you have representation or whatnot, you get to try to hit the bullseye from 50 yards away instead of 100. It's still a monumentally difficult and statistically improbable task. Even so, with what modicum of success we'd had with the Gamers movies, most notably Darkness Rising, and having just gotten out of film school, had a few contacts, and in 2008 we had about 5 projects that were in various stages of development, and every single one, including a Gamers, the project that would become Hands of Fate. And
Hands of Fate,
and Pwned, and Hop Jockey. One I can't talk about because it might have some life breathed back into it.
Oh, that's exciting.
And a couple of others.
Is that the one that you were pitching at AMC?
No, no, this is a different one.
Okay.
This is a film script that.
Got it.
Screensaver. Oh, there we go.
Awesome. We still have numbers.
We still have numbers. Anyway, so yes, where was it born from? So it was born out of that frustration. We were looking at, it was going to be about the end of our time in California. We needed to move back because we couldn't afford to live there anymore. And work-wise, nothing was happening. And I just remember really missing when things were easier or simpler. When it was a matter of grab a camera, go into the woods with some friends, and film something. Only this time around, we'd actually know what we were doing. Well, we would know. You knew what you were doing.
Sort of.
You were the only film major at a school with no film program. But you actually knew how the camera operated, and that we needed to shoot it out of order.
It's okay. We have editing.
And angles and such. And through luck and happenstance, we made the Gamers, and it turned into the niche. It gave us the foothold we needed in the gaming industry. And allowed us to build a fan base that allowed us to make Darkness Rising, that allowed me to go to film school and put us in a situation where it was like, well, it's time to either find a way to make this work or look at a career change. So we were in a situation on the train back from San Diego of talking to Jeremy and Don Early. How could we recapture the energy and the success of the Gamers? Is there a way we could try to capture lightning in a bottle again? And this was the era of the web series was really starting to become a thing on its own, the form.
Which we had experimented with in the very early days of web series with Dead Gentleman Presents.
Right, back when it was more of almost like a video podcast.
Right, exactly. When that was going to be the big thing on iTunes.
On iTunes, which is now dying. Anyway, so this sort of web series 2.0 had come out, which of course, probably the best example of that was The Guild by Felicia Day, but also The Legend of Neil was a great inspiration. Hellholes was one, and of course Dr. Horrible came out and showed just what could be done in the medium. And so
Yeah.
we thought, well, what if we did something like that? What if we tried to make something that was native to the web, that followed this pattern of we called it the bag of chips model of
Okay.
fan satiation.
Oh.
It's like no individual bag of chips has enough, and you want more, and it's gone too quickly. So that
Well, back when web series were like 5 to 8 minutes.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Which has evolved again.
Which is funny because in a way it was kind of like the old 1930s serials that would precede the movies, where so we need to resolve the cliffhanger from the previous episode.
Right.
Change locations a couple of times so things don't get stale.
Right.
Jump over here to this party, whatnot, and then end on another cliffhanger. So the pace of it had to be just rapid. There was not. We could do deeper character development and longer arcs, but the episode structure itself had to be really rapid. And so on this train ride back, I thought, well, what could we do that could fit that? We know fantasy. Washington State is a beautiful location. Your temperate rainforests and
serious lack of castles.
serious lack of castles. That's unfortunate,
But otherwise,
which did influence the creation of the Afterlands.
Right.
Million square miles of ruins and wilderness.
it's perfect.
Perfect. And then it was just a matter of, well, what do we want to do? Could we do a fantasy comedy, something? Well, what if we did another, like a Gamers is the web series? And we thought, no, that wouldn't work because of the amount of time we have per episode, 5 minutes
Right.
each. We're going to be jumping between two realities and characters playing two. That might be a bit cumbersome. What if we just did a straight fantasy comedy? And that's where it started.
And we are. Yeah.
Here we are, 9 years.
Right.
10 years later. This was 2009 when we were talking about
exactly.
the script.
And then we shot in 2010,
April of 2010.
when our lives were just completely going sideways. But of course, the original plan was you wrote a script. How many pages was that original?
I mean, it's I don't remember how many pages it was, but it was 27 episodes.
It's 27 episodes, and it took us all the way through the events of the end of
season 3. And at the time, it was two different scripts. There was JourneyQuest, which was 20 episodes of just just the core four story of
forgot about that.
Nara, Caro, and Glorian,
Uh-huh.
all the way through till the end of season 3. But then there was a 7-episode tie-in series,
Right.
starring Ren the Bard.
Right.
And the idea was that throughout the 20 episodes of that mammoth season, we would only catch glimpses of this pigtailed character.
Right.
Darting behind the riddle pillar, peering up over a wall. You'd hear odd pronouncements when she swears or yelps in fear, and then when they look, no one's there. And then the idea would be we'd put these other episodes on the DVD as the bonus, and it would tie in, and you'd actually get to see what else was happening in the series there.
Right.
Early DLC, if it as a form. But due to production realities,
We cut it in half.
we had to.
And then we
first
cut it
season
in half again.
We quartered it.
We quartered it.
And wound up doing
Right.
in our first season wound up becoming the first 5 episodes of that initial mammoth script, and then episodes, I think, 6 and 7 of the Ren script.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so we had to wind up. Ben, with his editing magic, figured out a way to blend them all together. Because it was you and Samara.
It was. That's right. Yeah, Samara and I were sitting there because originally we had this kind of reveal with Rin that took place slowly, like you described, and then we didn't get that scene with her, the Orcs, until episode 6.
Until episode 6.
So we moved it to the beginning of the series, and I think it actually worked. It set the tone.
It bookended the series.
Yeah.
And it did exactly what a first season and what a pilot is supposed to do. And then it introduced our characters. It showed us very quickly who they were. Gave us the rules we needed to understand the world, the tone and the setting, and here we are 9 years later.
Now, if you're just joining us, we're doing a live stream with Matt Vancil. He is the creator of JourneyQuest, the creator of the Gamers. We're going to be hearing some excerpts from the Farther All World Bible. We'll be taking fan questions. Some of them are already in. I'm monitoring on Facebook. Matt is monitoring on Twitch.
Oh, here's one. Yes.
So we will cover those questions in a minute. And of course, this is for the JourneyQuest Season 4 campaign. And what I'm trying to do with these streams, because what we've discovered, getting so many comments while this is going on, is a lot of people haven't caught up to exactly what's happening now here in 2019.
Oh.
Right. So, well, for one thing, there's a train going by outside, so there we are. So we're funding season 4. JourneyQuest is not dead by any means. If you're on YouTube, we have mostly moved away from YouTube, and a lot of that is because kind of premium narrative content doesn't go well with YouTube algorithms. YouTube prioritizes daily content. They want new stuff every day that's going to be about personalities that you can turn around very quickly, and we can make new episodes if we're really on fire maybe every 6 months.
Entertainment-wise, it's been a fascinating sort of bifurcation in what used to be web content. You had the narrative scripted web series like what we did and the Guild did, and then you have the YouTubers, basically.
Exactly.
Building is it fair to say, a cult of personality, or?
I don't know if it's a cult, but it's, I mean, well, some of them.
It's more like,
it's about
episodes of like
personality and that kind of connection.
Yeah.
And it's the breakdown that you always talk about. It's like film is plot, television is character, and then Twitch is personality. So
intelligence, wisdom, charisma.
So we are streaming to YouTube, and the answer to where we've gone is Amazon Prime in the US and the UK, and we've had more views there than we ever had on YouTube.
By millions.
Yeah. We're not allowed to say the exact numbers, but it's high. And also the Fantasy Network. The Fantasy Network is our platform that we built in partnership with Aerostorm and The Forge and now Recursor. And it is a subscription optional streaming service. You do not need to subscribe. You do not need to pay any money to watch our content on the Fantasy Network. We have apps on iOS, Android, Roku, coming up on Xbox soon, and Amazon Fire. So those apps are free also. So if you're wanting to watch our newest content anywhere in the world, the easiest and the cheapest and the fastest way to do it is to go straight to the Fantasy Network. It will be behind the really new stuff. We put behind a paywall initially so it can go to the Kickstarter subscribers and the Patreon supporters. If you want to subscribe and help, great. You don't have to. It's going to be there. Free is so important to us. We know that a lot of people can't pledge. We are fan-supported. We want to make sure that everyone in our fandom is able to watch our shows. So we are not dead, but YouTube is not a large part of our process. So there's the YouTube information. I know we're going to get into the World Bible in a minute. Could I come in with a few questions?
Hit me.
So coming in from Facebook here, asking why we have a bigger push at Gen Con. They saw we had a booth at Emerald City Comic Con. It didn't feel like a big presence. You know, Gen Con has really become our home convention.
It really has.
Which
is funny because ECCC is on our home turf.
Right.
But it's not our home con.
Yeah. So we have booth 100 at Gen Con. We do 2 Gamers Live shows. We are providing the multicam live streaming support on the main stage at Gen Con this year. We have folks like Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon who join us at our booth.
And in the shows for the last couple of years on the authors panel.
And we are sponsoring the Gen Con Film Festival now. So we're not eligible to apply to submit projects for rewards. Alex Blue comments, Hands of Fate is still my favorite gamers. And I have a story for you. So I saw a comment from someone recently saying, I have watched Hands of Fate hundreds of times. It is my favorite movie ever. It speaks to me. It was this long talk about how much it meant and how they loved the card game, how they loved Natalie's journey.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, you know, Hands of Fate was a tough movie.
I think that was the most technically challenging one. I've actually, in the class that I teach, when we get into the sections on scheduling and continuity, I bring up Brian's hair and the shoots that were months apart and hundreds of miles apart.
Within the same scene.
Within the same scene sewn together. Which is remarkable.
I'm still proud of it, and I'm still frustrated by how much we couldn't do with that film.
I think that's the curse of the artist, is to be constantly aware of what in your mind it failed to live up to, but everyone else just sees the...
Well, and when we released it, also, I think we saw so much of the criticism that we didn't hear the praise. Like, I was convinced for years that people hated it, but now when I see people talking about it, there's a low level of grumbling, but there's also this, I love this. And part of why I think it's important that we bring up Hands of Fate is because there are, this is all tied in. Joshua comments, I love the Fartherall stuff you've done, Matt. And gamers and JourneyQuest are all part of the Fartherall world. Without spoilers, can you talk a little bit about some of the Hands of Fate tie-ins that we may see in Season 4?
Oh,
Because
yes.
there are 3 that I can think
So
of.
what I can tell you, so the world of the Romance of the Nine Empires is called Countermay, and it, like Fartherall, is a world that had much history in its rear view. In fact, in the movie, they're celebrating their 15th anniversary of whatnot, of how player decisions and tournament victories have steered the narrative on the game. However, there are deep tie-ins from Countermay to Fartherall. In Fartherall, it's known as the Counterweight world. Both in refugees who came there when the world was young and who returned there from later. Technologies that shift from place to place. And
Fartherall or Countermay?
both.
Okay, perfect.
We haven't seen the last of Countermay.
No.
The last place where we visited it specifically was in The Stray and the Hole in the Stars, the Hop Jockey novel.
That's right.
There was a brief moment in there.
And you and I know what some of the tie-ins are with Hop Jockey that people will eventually figure out as we continue to move on.
Stuff we've had on the back burner for over a decade now.
I mean, there's some clues that are even available now. Like if you look at that gorgeous medallion that we just got the render up of today.
That turned out so nicely.
Right. There's a symbol that people will recognize from Countermay there that may tell you a whole lot about some of these connections in this backstory. And then, of course, from 3.5, we saw a crossover character.
Yes, we did. Yes.
And then there's one that we're going to see that I know we don't want to spoil at all.
We can't.
Because it mines. I think people will also be pretty pissed at us.
Oh, absolutely.
In a good way.
That's how you know it's working.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that people are enjoying and are discovering Hands of Fate.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the criticism when it first came out was it wasn't what we'd done before.
Right.
It wasn't another sit around the table doing an RPG, and we still love doing that.
Well, we got that with every season of JourneyQuest. Someone has complained. Season 1, why isn't this Gamers?
Right.
Season 2, why isn't this Season 1?
When are they going to cut away to the table?
Why isn't this Season 2?
Yeah. And when are they going to cut away to the table and see that? Why is it not like the previous version of this series?
Yeah. Oh, we're at 310.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
70% is often the magical. It's not magic, but 70% is kind of the threshold after which most campaigns succeed.
Fantastic.
And so nobody relax, but
we relax, but momentum is on our side.
Yeah, a little more than we have 53 hours to go. So
I can math.
that clock is ticking. We need $120,000 more dollars.
53 hours.
Now, by way of comparison, day 1 of this campaign, we raised over $100,000 in 12 hours. And day 1 and the final day usually
are the two biggest.
So we will see what will happen. You said there were some questions on Twitch.
Yes, let's see. The first one from Balarlek asks, interesting. Your on-stream numbers don't match the website. Is that page updating properly? It will when I press this little refresh wheel, which is outside of the frame of the screen up there.
Well, and we're looking at the back end. Could you just scroll down on that one so that we could see the actual chart? There it is. Yeah, so this gives you kind of a sense of what we've been looking at. You can see a pretty dramatic curve there. It's a very even curve. We've only had one day that really kind of stepped outside of it, and that was
It's kind of following the circus tent pattern. It starts starts very abrupt,
Right.
then you have the gentle slope up to the pavilion where the tent pole is, and then comes down the other side.
So that's kind of the situation there. You can also kind of see the average pledge, what's come in on Kickstarter, what's come in from other referrers. For the people who ask, why are you on Kickstarter? That $80,901 is why we're on Kickstarter. We would not have. We tried an experimental campaign earlier this year on another platform, a campaign that we could risk failing, And that campaign, we knew within 2 hours that it was going to fail.
Wow.
Because we didn't have the Kickstarter boost that comes from spending almost a decade building an audience on this platform.
Building a network, yeah.
Yeah, so because it's so easy to pledge now. So I'd love to move over to talk about Season 3.5.
Right. So Season 3.5 was actually the brainchild of Ben here, as we were troubleshooting solutions for how are we going to do Season 4, which...
Yeah, you're being kind. What I said to Matt and Tony was, well, I mean, Tony knew this already, was here are all the scenes that will never make it in, that we have to cut for the budget.
For the budget reasons. And, and the thing, wonderful thing about Tony is he's never going to be SU. You know, he is the most accomplished and experienced AD, that's assistant director, in the Seattle area. He's basically the sergeant you listen to because he'll keep your platoon functional. And so when he says we can't afford this, practically this is beyond the scope of what we can accomplish.
Yeah.
You listen and you start making adjustments. And we've done that in the past. You know, we've tweaked some scenes, we've changed locations. Some scenes have gotten cut entirely. But what we were looking at with the Season 4 script was we have to lose entire arcs.
Yeah.
Which was
painful arcs.
Painful arcs there. So Ben pitched it. We were up for a Vancouver Web Fest, actually, where Zoe cleaned up.
Yeah, right.
Strowlers made its thundering debut.
Let's see. No, not just Strowlers, but we won Best Pilot for the Gamers, the Shadow Menace.
Yeah.
And then Strowlers for visual effects. Strowlers then went on to win Best Pilot at Starable Fest.
Yes. In fact, Zoe did so much damage to the competition at Vancouver Web Fest that they opted to close the Web Fest down for this year out of shame.
No, that is not what happened.
It didn't happen this year, though.
No, it didn't.
Stick with the narrative. It's fine.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the heart and soul behind Vancouver Web Fest is having medical issues this year.
Dear. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So
Suzette, if you're watching, we love you and can't wait for the show to come back. So, so we came up with 3.5.
3.5. Ben Flitable, what if we did 3.5? The obvious pun being, of course, Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. And we did a
intentional
half campaign where we just raised the money for these scenes.
Right.
And we said, well, that's interesting, but what would we do in addition to that? Because that in and of itself, that won't. Tony would immediately say, well, that would give us a 15, 20-minute DVD.
Yeah.
That's it's a good idea, but how can we make it? How can we put enough value in it?
Yeah.
That the fan base who's been waiting very patiently for the next installment feels satisfied by it. And also, how do you communicate? We can't give you the full series right now because we can't afford to, so we're going to give you a few scenes that will be cut into it later on.
We've discovered on this campaign that we have to say everything 10 times, and it still won't work. So we did not launch this campaign until we consulted with our 3.5 backers, and the overwhelming consensus was launch Season 4 while Matt is writing the World Bible with all those stretch goals, which we will get to.
So I'm glad that you did that because I'm not done yet.
Yeah, but Narita has been fielding loads of questions from 3.5 backers saying, wait, what's going on? How dare you launch Season 4? And we've been fielding loads of comments from people saying, I just watched 3.5. What the hell? It was a partial season of disconnected story arcs that look like they should be cut into Season 4 and not stand on their own. And my suspicion is what happened is people were so excited to see JourneyQuest that they saw the campaign, they hit pledge, they never read a thing.
Let's go with that explanation.
Yeah. I think that the recommendation is always look at what's going on. We are so thankful for our backers. We're working tirelessly to take care of everyone who has missed all of these updates.
There have been a lot of updates.
We've actually been finding some backers from JourneyQuest 2 and Hands of Fate who didn't get their rewards. Who have come. We tried for years and years, and like Kickstarter update after update and emails and saying please, please, please. But at the end of the day, sometimes it takes a new campaign for people to realize
Oh wait, I never got my XYZ.
My XYZ. But if you go back through your email, you'll find dozens of emails from us saying, "Please let us help you." So
we want to get you
Yeah.
the rewards you paid for.
But also, so I think that's a good kind of segue here
Yes.
to talk about. So we did 3.5. We did not reach our stretch goals. We had a ton of additional content we wanted to do, and then BackerKit reached out and said, "So we can do stretch goals in BackerKit now. You want to try this?" So we did. And how many approximate additional words would you say we added in stretch goals for the World Bible?
At this point, about 100,000.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's
That's like a whole new novel.
it's already the longest project I've ever written.
Yeah,
It's at the moment I think it's 180,000 words.
because this is the entire
Right,
vision
you should
in
say.
one place,
So
right?
yes, the Farther All World Guide. The idea is we're going to build the equivalent of a campaign setting without the actual crunch numbers into it.
Yeah.
That is the full history of Farther All. Now we've established in earlier projects that Farther All has 9 different ages in which things occur. We've played with 3 of them. JourneyQuest is set in the world's 4th age. The Gamers movies take place in the 5th age of the
Yeah.
world, and the first novel I wrote, Pwned, was in the 6th,
Now-
which was a
and-
way that we used to separate, how come Perf and
Right.
Osric never run
Right.
into each other? Well, there's 1,000 years between them.
Well, and that brings up, there's a comment here from Daryl,
Mm-hmm.
who wants to write a short story based on Farther All, and he's saying some of the ages have very little info to go on, other than like Steam or Diesel Punk. Is there any way to get a little bit more info about some of these ages?
Yes, there is, Daryl. In fact, I have, of course, I humped my writing computer all the way here without ever asking, hey, Ben, do you happen to have Scrivener on your laptop? So I don't have to, go to my office and unplug everything. And well, turns out he does. And I have here with me the rough draft of the Farther All World Guide. All of its sections. Most of the sections are done. I finished the penultimate entry in the 8th age today.
Okay. And which age is the 8th? Is that
The Age of Oil.
the Age of Oil, so
And-
Diesel Punk.
Diesel Punk, yep.
Okay.
And the final age, the Age of Dust, should be short by comparison.
Because dust.
Because dust. Things did not go terribly well for
Yeah.
people in
So
the
that'd be
Age
like
of Dust.
Mad Max.
Like it. Yeah.
Okay. So they're essentially going the same trajectory as our world.
Very much so.
They're-
Except they skipped
yeah.
the whole Cold War period and
Okay.
I guess we'd call it, what would we call it? Atom Punk
Okay, right.
period, and just went straight to post-apocalyptic there, like you do.
Yeah.
So we have over here a section, a little, you can sort of see of the different sections that are available. I can read sections from this. I can
Yeah.
answer questions about it.
And this is what makes this stream so exciting. Matt has everything here. This is the first real look at what you've been working on for 6 months now, 7 months, 8 months.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. I keep pushing the,
Yeah.
I keep apologetically asking for more time as things, well, this
Yeah.
age,
Well,
7th age shouldn't take too
And the thing is, the backers who read the updates fully understand that we unlocked the complete vision. Like, we unlocked every stretch goal
Yes, thank you, backers.
for this. If you've seen the Strowler's World Bible, this is going to be massive in comparison.
You're going to be able to crack walnuts with this baby.
Yeah. And it takes time to do that, but my feeling is having a comprehensive resource like this is worth taking the time to do it, right? Especially because you've
absolutely.
already written the scripts.
Well, the fun thing about that's been really fun about it is both comprehensive and light on specifics. Like we're going over the general technological trends, migrations and
Yeah.
movements, the dominant peoples of the age, the alliances, key wars, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're not getting into the nitty gritty of like who was the king of this small section of this part of the world
Right.
between these years.
Right.
That area is open for interpretation and filling. We don't want to peer too closely into the fractal here.
Yeah.
So to answer Daryl's question, like if you want to write a short story set in Farther All, more
Yeah.
power to you.
And in a few months, we'll see.
A few months.
You'll have access. You'll be able to get the PDF. You'll be able to get the print version, and it will have, like Matt said, enough detail to tell these stories without so much detail that you're overwhelmed.
And there is a chance that anything you write, if you want to write something and set it in Fartherall, that it can actually become canon because of
Yes.
the shared cinematic
Universe license
universe
agreement.
license agreement.
The
Skula. Which
Available online at scu.la.
if you want to make anything set in Fartherall, you can. Look it up online, and
This is essentially taking the Creative
The
Commons
Commons,
license that
yes.
we used originally and adapting it to fit. We've talked about that in other streams. Short version is scu.la/fartherall. You can make commercial derivatives based on this world. You can remix this world. We grant huge amounts of rights. And the reason we can do that, if you watched before, you know what I'm going to say, is because you are funding what we do.
yes.
The fans fund it. Getting Hollywood to let those kind of rights go, like imagine James Bond getting released under the Skula, where anyone could write a James Bond novel and sell it, or Star Wars. Never gonna happen.
Never.
But because you fund us, it can happen here.
It can happen here. We had a question here. Any chance we can get a cameo or reference to Harzul the Incredibly Evil in Season 4? I know how much you love that entire arc being canon. I did love that entire arc being canon, the Fartherall arc of Masters of the Metaverse. However, that arc was set in the early 5th Age, and JourneyQuest takes place in the 4th. So Harzul cannot be referenced in Season 4 because he's not been born yet.
Now, was there a character in that arc that is relevant to Season 4?
You can shut the hell up.
Okay. I will shut the hell up. So if you've watched everything, you will there will be special joy that you might experience.
Yes.
Oh, Tony. No, wait. Yeah, Tony's online.
Oh dear.
All right. So we have a couple more questions. Tony's just talking about stabbing, so we're going to ignore him.
Tony stab rants is regular.
Yeah, I don't know why Tony watches these streams, because every time he does, we just talk about how lovable he is and what good hugs he gives and what a teddy bear he is.
Last time I was on a stream, Tony texted me a picture of a knife.
It was a hug. It was a hug knife.
Hug knife.
So Tony, thank you. We really appreciate the positive affirmation, and we want all of the fans to know that you are really completely harmless and they have nothing to fear from you.
The best way to show affection to Tony Becerra is to share the Beceratops meme. He loves that.
Oh, he does.
Absolutely. It warms his soul.
Rob asks, did you have a particular inspiration behind making two of your major races be obviously degenerate versions of your, quote, peak races? Like, for example, from the Orcs to the Orcs. And I don't know that, degenerate is a weird word,
Sure.
because the Orcs, there's a lot going on with the Orcs.
Sort of. I read a lot of Dragonlance when I was in middle school. And in the Dragonlance lore, there was a race of people called the High Orcs. The High Ogres. The Urda, I believe. Who were this blue-skinned, statuesque race of people created by the gods who had fallen into decline. And I really liked that idea, that the so-called savage or warped races of the present were degenerated is kind of the better word, or had descended from, or had become a more atavistic version of a higher people who no longer existed, which is...
The Orcs had blue skin, they rode airships.
Rode in airships, they were technologically advanced.
We've seen them in Hands of Fate.
One of the three elder races in Fartherall. And their captured descendants were tortured and warped into the world's first orcs. All that is in, all of the politics involving orcs and why they are considered the brutal savages they are. Stems from events that happened 2 ages previously, when the Ord, as the interplanetary technologically advanced race, the equivalent of like an Atlantean civilization, came to the world. They were one of the three elder races of that time, along with a group called the Ald, who also migrated from a different world, and the Olam, who were the actual children of Fartherall's gods. Of the three elder races, though, the Ord were the only one who were not immortal.
Right.
On their own. They were just incredibly powerful due to their technologies and magics. And they had among them a few entities that were the equivalent of demigods called kin dragon, which, if I go down that road, is going to take
A long time.
a long time.
People should read the book, which is a good. Alex is asking, will the Bible ever be public, as in available for non-backers? I think this should only be available to people who have given us money, and the last thing that we want to do is make it publicly available for anyone to use in any way. No, it's going to be public.
As a writer, the last thing I want is for new people to read my material.
So, yeah, we're safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Once it's done.
Once it's done, which of course...
You're just going to put a mild guilt trip on you.
Mirth is the most awesome demigod. Yes, Mirth is one of the most awesome demigods. The write-ups on those will be going out to the backers once the demigods and heroes section is complete, which of course I have to finish the history section so I can make sure I'm slotting everyone into the proper spot there. Yeah. But yes, Mirth is a character created by one of the high-level backers.
Right.
Became a demigod and is responsible for some pretty key shenanigans that.
I'm so excited to read this, and it's for me. This is one of the most fun parts. Is that kind of interplay of input from other people who may totally be out to troll you, but
you know what we saw that in the Farther All World Guide, and I owned everything. I owned everything that happened in the Farther All campaign, including some other things that happened in other Masters of the Metaverse and Demon Hunters campaigns that affected Farther All. It's all in there, and
that's pretty exciting. So there's a chance that Metaverse and Demon Hunters could eventually.
Absolutely.
Have some threads.
The threads are there, if they're not named out specifically outright.
I can hear Paximo screaming from the other coast.
Oh yeah,
right now.
She is.
Hey, Don Early just joined us as well.
Oh, hey Dono. Don Early, who, if you like the Demon Hunters universe, put this on your calendars. He's going to be starting a Patreon of his own, writing specifically Demon Hunters RPG related material, which we're pretty excited about there.
And he is also in a little farther along than Farther All on the Demon Hunters World Bible. We are making all 3 of these World Bibles so that with the same format, so they will look good on your shelf next to each other. So you can kind of have this package of everything you need to tell stories within all of our universes. So
I love library building. One thing that does annoy me is when my books create that superhero cityscape of skyscrapers, because none of them are of the same size next to one another.
Yeah.
There.
So if you have the Strahler's World Bible, it's going to be the same kind of feel, the same form factor. We're using that layout, those fonts and so forth, kind of as our model to jump in. So it's all.
Do you remember the name of the template you sent me and said, "What do you think about this one?"
For a novel, we were looking at a layout template called Bard.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I don't need to see any more. That's the one. But to go back to an earlier point that was made, you made about the fans potentially trolling or working with fans to create content. This is something we've actually been doing since the 2nd season of JourneyQuest. So it's actually we're familiar, comfortable with it now. It began with coining words in Orcish, which did have an effect on what was said in the show, and did have an effect on the psychology and the history of the orcs themselves. And that's actually been really fun. I'll tell you one thing, the lore rewards, they are time intensive.
Yeah.
And but they're really rewarding, and they're tons of fun. Sometimes we go overboard with them, like in the 3.5 backer scene. This was a miscommunication, which was I know that because I'm working on the script side, and I was directing that bit, so I'm working on my shot lists and such for that, and so I'm not paying as much attention on the production side, because that's why you departmentalize.
Yeah.
Right. And I get this list of so here are the backers who are coming who got the higher level rewards and are going to be present on set. I interpreted that to mean here are the backers who are present in the backer scene, which somehow I got in my head that we needed an entire scene rather than walk-on cameos. So that scene where the Djinn is taking bids from the different trade guild heads was so over scope for what was necessary.
Yeah.
And yet everyone did so well. I was really surprised by how it turned out.
No,
not that backers aren't good actors.
So
I'd never be on record saying.
I want to ask. I mean, some people come in and are really nervous. Some people come in and just own it. And we happen to have a group that did not need a lot of coaching.
It can be really daunting if you've never
Yeah.
done film acting before. I mean, if your primary experience with acting has been theater,
Yeah.
you rehearse everything for weeks in advance. You
Right.
do the production as one entire unit, and you have that nice buffer
Yeah.
of light between yourself and the audience right there. But in film, it is so intrusive. The camera is a microscope, and it's right here. There are lights everywhere,
Yeah.
wires. It's not a comfortable place to be emotionally vulnerable of the form that you need to be in order to deliver a convincing
And to feel
performance.
natural.
And to feel natural
Yeah.
doing it, right?
Well, I want to ask about this scene. It's come up a lot. I think at this point, anyone other than you who understood how that scene fits into the story has forgotten. So the question that I have, that Tony has, that backers have, without spoilers, obviously, is what can you tell us about why this scene exists and what it means?
So the Wicked Kings need something delivered to them by mundane means.
Something that we will presumably encounter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they hand it to the Grand High Muse of the Bards Guild, the headmistress of the school there, to handle because they were bored and didn't want to do it themselves. She offloaded it to the Djinn, so the Djinn is stuck taking bids from these different mercantile concerns to deliver the cargo, which, of course, the complete opposite happens that he was expecting, which is they're not competing with one another. Nobody wants to deliver this because they know what it actually is.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the group that decides to is the Assassin's Circle because they DGAF.
So presumably at some point we may see an assassin delivering this mystery item. Possibly. Or maybe something will go wrong.
Or maybe something will go wrong, or maybe
Maybe I
the
should
item
read
in
the
question
script
will
again.
be seen.
Right. Okay. I think that's enough to work with.
That's
We have
enough.
some more fan questions that have come in.
Hit me. Oh, I got a couple.
Was it deliberate to build the orcs in the series as the most heroic characters, or did that just naturally happen? That's from Gary.
That was absolutely the intention.
Yeah.
One of the things, as we're trying to describe the idea for JourneyQuest is like, and I remember we had this conversation. It's like, no, we're trying to make it apparently generic.
Yes.
That on its surface it looks completely standard D&D fantasy style fantasy. There are wizards, there are elves, there are orcs, but there's more to it than that once you peer beyond the veneer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we looked at in early development is the orcs are always the bad guys, the greenskins.
Yeah.
It's always okay to kill them. They're always savage. You never have any remorse. You can slaughter them in droves and still feel heroic.
Ever since Tolkien, they've also been racially coded in some super problematic ways.
They have, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we looked at it as, well, how could we build the orcs into the most noble,
Right.
the most humane people, but at the same time have them still be thought of as savages and brutes and whatnot. And part of that led into the whole construct of orcs needing to hibernate, which limited their activity in the year. And when you met the orcs when they weren't hibernating, they were the sleep-deprived, savage, red-eyed, murderous, fiends that the dwarves and humans said that they always were, and that stuck. But life for the orcs is nasty, brutish, and short. They've got the shortest lifespans of any of the civilized peoples in Fartherall. They were the warped and deprived slaves for a millennium or more under the mountains, who won their freedom and were given nothing by the established powers of the world, that have since developed their own culture and clan system and have no use for gods who have no use for them.
Right.
So that's how you have all of humanity, the elves, the dwarves, the gods, the wizards, all saying, "No, watch out for them. They don't care for us," and they're savages, by the way.
What I appreciate is that fans have and viewers have so quickly picked up on there's more going on with these orcs, and that they've seen them as the sexy orc, the smart orc, that there's a lot going on beneath the surface, and that we've been able to grow with these characters. If you haven't seen 3.5, I won't spoil it, but I got an email today from someone who just was in tears with what happens with Yart in season 3.5, and just felt so validated and seen as a person. And it was such an important reminder that representation and telling stories from outside just our own experiences and working with people who can help tell those stories.
Exactly.
It makes such a difference.
Absolutely. If you don't know, or if you shy away, and this is something in my own history I've struggled with, is shying away from telling those stories because I don't have that experience, and there's a fear of tokenizing it.
That's
or making it inauthentic and whatnot. And you have resources. You can do your own research. You can ask people. You can get it right.
And we worked with so many people to get that right. There were fans who were involved. There were external consultants. Some of our staff was involved.
And we went back and forth for quite a while to get this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one scene, one dialogue exchange that the
So
whole
many
thing
rewrites.
hinged on.
Yeah.
So many rewrites, and I'm proud of what we did.
Yeah, I wanted you to hear that it is already just been a hugely emotional, transformational experience for people who are thrilled to have seen themselves on screen in some way or another.
That is
Yeah.
that is supremely validating praise.
Yeah. Well, and I needed that. This is a hard campaign emotionally.
Oh yeah.
And realizing and remembering that what we do does make a difference and does matter. It's a silly little fantasy show, but it's also genuinely life-changing for people.
Narrative fiction does not have to be real to be true. No.
I feel like I just made a movie about that.
I've absolutely. It's when it's one of the first classes of each semester. That's one of the things I get into.
Yeah.
Using I wind up in the classes using a lot of movies that everyone has seen because we all have a common reference point there.
Yeah.
And the idea, does a movie have to be real? Do the events in a movie have to be real for the message, for the armature of it to be true and resonant? It absolutely does not.
Do we need to be literary?
No.
For it to
absolutely
be legitimate fiction?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of loves on the stream, so thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question from Daryl, who's writing his own high fantasy novel and wants to know if there's any chance of getting you to read it and give him feedback.
Sure, I'm free in 2025. No, I mean
that's always the challenge.
I'd be honored.
Yeah.
Let me email me. We'll see what we can do. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I could get to it in a timely manner, but fan materials are very important to me, and I look forward to reading them. Alpin, I still am going to read your Farther All novella. I've gotten a couple chapters in, but then 2 JourneyQuest Kickstarters and some personal health, family health stuff happened, and it is a priority. It's just one I can't pull higher up at the moment, and I'm sorry for the delay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
Well, and I think everyone wants you to do the best possible work. So I don't think anyone's gonna say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Matt, half-ass the rest of something."
There are a few things I'm willing to half-ass.
Okay.
Actually, one of the things that's I want to get this out. There will be a gazetteer in the World Guide, but it's only going to be a single map because I don't want to do 9 different maps.
Oh, for each
one. So what I'll do is basically provide, here's the generic map of Farther All, which is basically going to be the same bordered one that was in Pwned. There are references to regions beyond that map, many regions beyond that map, and if someone's enterprising and wants to fill those out, you can do that. But the gazetteer will include a text section of, here's where the Halberine Peninsula is. Here is the Northern Afterlands. Here are the Brumback Mountains. Here's the Hibernian Strait, and just give it geographical locations on it, because so many of these places actually change in their very nature, based on how the world itself changes. You remember the conversation we've had about the nature of faith, and how belief in gods can actually warp the reality, the physical
it's been such a theme
order
through
of
all of
the
our
world.
works.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's been really fun.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. How does writing the broad strokes of history for the World Bible compare with writing the nitty-gritty details of specific individuals in JourneyQuest / The Gamers? I'm pretty sure this is a serious question. It is Rival Guy, so he might be trolling you.
It might be. How does it compare? It's different because so many of the strokes are broad, and the big challenge is resisting the urge to dive down deeper into the fractal. That's the point where I want to say I want to start plotting out actual years and months and names and different factions that with different individuals who betrayed whom and who fled to what town. I mean, just getting into the nitty gritty, and part of that is because I've mostly been reading history for the last couple of years.
Right.
Yeah, for the last couple of years I don't go to fiction for release anymore. But it's flexing the same muscles, and it's a different kind of rewarding, in a way, because with a fiction narrative, the ultimate goal is progress and resolution.
Right.
Right. If I have you plant seeds early on. Divvy up plot points and ideas in appropriate places so that they blossom at the right time. But we have a definite direction, and that is towards a satisfying resolution of character and conflict.
Yeah.
But with the world history, there is no resolution.
Yeah.
It's cyclical. The technologies change, the gods change, the peoples migrate, but the same problems keep piling up, and they are resolved either peacefully and morally,
right,
or things just get so bad that everything collapses,
right,
and then the rebuilding process begins again. So it doesn't have that payoff of I've been building towards something with seeds I've planted in the past forever, and it's what a satisfying resolution, now everything's over.
Yeah.
Now it's a matter of, oh God, those seeds that planted in the past are popping up again.
Right.
Oh God, it's falling apart again. Okay, things are okay for a while, but look at the damage. And then cyclically go through that again. So, and that's been fascinating, is, okay, based on what happened at the end of this age, this is the board, as it were, that is the world, where the world powers are, where the powers of influence are, where the important resources are. This is how these people would react as a societal level. And societies are, when interacting with one another, cold, pragmatic, and immoral. And so there's not much humor in the history of Fartherall there.
Right.
The humor comes out of individual stories and arcs and characters, but
well, and humor also usually comes out of from the perspective that we bring to it. Perf doesn't know he's in a comedy.
No. Comedies, here's a writing tip for you.
Yeah.
No one in a comedy thinks they're in a comedy. To them, it's deadly serious. It's hilarious to us, but to them, it's deadly serious.
And that's how we've handled it from the very beginning. It's life and death stakes.
Remember your Mel Brooks. Tragedy is when I cut my finger. Comedy is when you fall into an open sewer and die.
I'll tell you my Mel Brooks story someday.
We call that foreshadowing.
Exactly.
That's another literary tip for you.
Rhonda wants to know, how does one get accepted into the Bard's school? What requirements need to be met?
Crap, I didn't write that.
You should make a note, because that is going to come up. All right, Rhonda, we're going to add another few thousand words to the World Bible. It's
How
cool.
does one get accepted?
Into the Bard's College. Well, clearly some people are totally unqualified and are only in because their parents bribed the school.
Yeah, legacies.
Yeah.
There. And then there are the... but you see, the school needs those so they can subsidize the students who don't come from means, who often are self-taught.
Yeah.
And while they are, can be wildly talented, a lot of time their theory is lacking.
Got it.
How
are we doing on Twitch?
Let's take a look. No real questions here. The last one is, I had a lot of fun reading the Fartherall Parmy you sent out to 3.5 backers and choosing which age to write a character for. I'm very glad. So the thing about a question is it needs to be phrased as an interrogative. Most of these are declaratives, which is fine, but it's a Q&A, not a D&A.
I was reading other comments, so I wasn't listening.
All right, that's fine. Most
So
people tune in.
whatever answer you gave is the right answer.
Indeed. Let's check the numbers and see how we're doing here.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, hit
weapon
hit that refresh wheel, and no whammies, no whammies. Yay!
Oh, awesome.
All right, there we go.
Wow. Our big goal for today is 324, I believe,
that would be
which would be amazing.
That would be marvelous.
It's extraordinary to see this going. Anyway, Tony wants to know which actor does Matt like the best?
Officially, Camille Mesmer.
All right, moving on. So I think we're just about. I think I can't see all of the comments at once. Let me double check one more time. Quinlan, I did not see your question about the gin. I'm going on my phone, but it's not showing every comment. Get it in again. We'll try to come back to you. In the meantime, what we would love to hear from you is Matt has the whole World Bible. What section are you the most curious about? Let us know in the comments on Facebook or Twitch. And we're going to get Matt to drop all the spoilers with a little bit of a reading from his work in progress.
I will likely not be able to read the entirety of the draft. Given again, to give you an example, so the current draft is about 180,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
A good-sized screenplay is 20.
So my theory is if you start reading now and don't stop until the Kickstarter is done, we'll be able to get through a fair amount of it. And that would show a lot of dedication to this campaign.
Would.
Can you imagine how many people would watch you after you hit 40 hours with no sleep, sitting in that chair, reading and crying and begging for release?
Didn't Andy Kaufman do that in one of his performances?
I feel like he did,
Read
yeah.
a book to an audience?
Yes. I don't know if he read for 50 hours, but
Is that how much time's left?
I don't know how much time is left.
Oh, 52, yeah.
52, yeah.
That's nothing.
All right, I'm going to double check in here, see if I've managed to time this to check. Okay, there we go. Is the gin, this is Quinlan,
Yes.
confirmed to be Primo from Hop Jockey?
Yes.
And if so, yes, is his time with a headmistress before or after the events of that novel?
Ooh.
I feel like that's a legitimate...
That's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Primo's experience in Fartherall happens before his experience with Sandy.
And can we answer if his experience in Fartherall happens before or after his experience with Myriad in Counter Me?
It happens before his experience in Hop Jockey.
So what is the? So we've encountered him 3 times now. What is the order in his life cycle? Is it Counter Me, Fartherall?
I think it's Counter Me, Fartherall, Hop Jockey.
Okay.
And one of the ways you can see that is in the decay of his accent, from when it is strongest to when he has almost none at all.
And the amount of gray
And the amount of gray
in his
mustache.
yes, which we were careful to check before 3.5 to make sure that it was was going to fit.
You know what's happened is at least one enterprising fan is going to go back and review and make sure that the level of gray actually matches what we just said.
I'm pretty sure that we even had a little effect in Gamers 3 showing some of it burning up.
Burning up, yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Sorry, Red. I think I missed your question as well. I'm checking in now for which arrow we want to see. Readathon. I don't have an answer here. If we don't have anything on Twitch, I'm gonna choose something.
Fair enough.
So I know the spoilers. Do we have anything on Twitch?
I hit the refresh button and now I have nothing.
Oh, sweet. Let's just jump in here. Hi, everyone. I'm on this side. Okay. Oh, that is the wrong one. Go away. Open Scrivener and it opened the other thing. Okay.
There we go. Okay, so the options are Welcome to Fartherall, Navigating the Hop Jockey Universe, Magic, The History of Fartherall, Gods and Religion, The Peoples of Fartherall, Dragons, Gazetteers, the epics, and other worlds.
I think it is clear from that we want to hear all about dragons. So
Dragons.
let's go ahead, pass it over to Matt. We'll come back to the Q&A in a bit.
All right. Should I close down? You know what? I think I'll drag this out of view so I
There you
can
go.
read it without.
I mean, people are already screen grabbing that moment there, so they can.
Sure. You know what? You can see all my typos anyway. I'll just read it to you.
All right.
All right. So, and I'll add this as I go. So we begin with. So first off, what the Dragon is. It's mentioned a bit in The Stray and the Hole in the Stars, which is the Hobjockey novel, that there are gods of worlds and then there are overpowers, which are the gods of gods. Those that are higher in higher level entities even than, say, the Zeus of Olympus or Thor of Asgard. They are members of a finite pantheon and masters of their own worlds, but then there are overpowers that to them are gods. In Fartherall and the Omniverse in general, there are two that are known. There is the Creator, who supposedly created the Tapestry of Worlds and all of the realms therein, and then there is either the Dragon or the Dragon, which is the great cosmic dragon, the personification of chaos that works to undo everything that the Creator has put together. So, reading down here. Overview. The eternal cosmic dragon, the origin of all dragon kind. It wings its way through the cosmos, laying its eggs in worlds established and new. These eggs hatch into proto-dragons that adapt to the environment in which they emerge and rapidly evolve into apex predators. For this is the goal of all dragons and their overpowered progenitor, to either consume the world or hobble it so that its life can never expand past its boundaries. But I wanted that to be better, so I need to improve that. Maybe I'll go up here. I think this is the second draft. Yes, there we go. Let's just forget that first bit here. Let's try this again. All right. Terrestrial dragons are the descendants of the Dragon, the great cosmic dragon that glides through the omniverse on wings of oblivion. It is the personification of chaos, the enemy of creation. All draconic life in Fartherall descended either from eggs laid by the dragon itself in the proto-matter that would become the world in the time of the gods, or from eggs laid after the advent of time by other terrestrial dragons. The first generation to hatch were the proto-dragons, nightmarish, asymmetrical entities defying description and morphology, great shuddering bundles of limbs and scales, tentacles and teeth. Some died immediately upon hatching, unsuited to the biome in which they emerged. Others died when their forms could not survive the physics of the world, collapsing under their own weight or bursting due to insufficient atmospheric pressure. Still others died when they were turned on and devoured by their siblings, as is the nature of dragons. But enough of them adapted due to insufficient atmospheric pressure.
Sorry.
That's all right, but enough of them adapted, evolving to fit the environment where they hatched, and learned to turn their hunger outward. It is from these handful of surviving proto-dragons that all terrestrial dragon kind is descended. Physiology. Contrary to popular belief, terrestrial dragons, simply called dragons from here on out, have no standard anatomy. What is often considered their standard bodily form is due to convergence and adaptation. Just as most swimmers in the sea have the same generic body shape but are not genetically related, dragons adapted to take the form of the ideal apex predator in whatever biome they came to inhabit. Though they have no set form, morphological patterns tend to repeat themselves. As is the case with advanced animal life, most terrestrial dragons are symmetrical. Unlike reptiles, dragons are warm-blooded and able to move quickly, which requires, of course, tremendous caloric intake, hence their legendary appetites. The draconic form most often encountered is a large toothed predator with an endoskeleton. Most iterations of dragon also include wings as well as limbs, a long neck, horns, scales, and their signature hunger. They also possess a unique set of internal organs that grant them abilities not seen elsewhere in animal life. Chief among them is the digestive tract, which allows them to digest all forms of mineral as well as organic matter, taking nutrients from stone as well as flesh. Also is the atrobladder, which allows for the production and exhalation of their devastating breath weapons. Now, there are certainly variations on this form. One of the main inconsistencies from world to world is whether a dragon's wings are its forelimbs or are separate limbs entirely. There are also a multitude of forms that do not fit this mold, however. Bizarre forms that can only be called alien have been viewed by wizards peering into other dimensions and worlds in the realms beyond. Ordic records mention exodragons, strange variations in form they encountered in their unending cosmic war against the dragon. Dragons with exoskeletons or without bones entirely, asymmetrical or even trisymmetrical forms, gelatinous dragons and transparent worms from the deepest ocean trenches and planets barren of light. Dragons that could not exist within Fartherall, as the pressures and chemistry of the atmosphere would kill them immediately. Dragons are, quite literally, everywhere, in every world in some shape or form, beyond the reckoning of gods and men. Adaptation. The remarkable mutability of dragonkind cannot be overstated. They can survive and thrive in the most extreme conditions, adapting sometimes within a single generation to new circumstances. Conditions that would kill one generation of dragonkind may have no effect on their progeny. Adaptation can occur within the eggs themselves, hatching dragons immune to the environs in which they were laid. What emerges from those shells may barely resemble the previous generation. Sudden ocean acidification, atmospheric pressure or chemical change, a sudden spike in temperature, dragons have survived them all. Dragon eggs, like the dragon itself, are atemporal. They exist outside of time. Lacking a set gestation period, dragon eggs can delay hatching until the baby dragons within have a chance to mutate to match prevailing conditions. As long as dragon eggs remain in a world, another generation of dragons can be born. This resilient dormancy has allowed dragonkind to persist and survive catastrophes that would have wiped other forms of life from the world. Planet killers, global famine, meteor strike, climate change, dragons have survived. Even the Oclysma, which plunged the world into darkness and unleashed the plague of undeath, was not enough to eradicate dragons. Gender fluidity. True dragons have no set gender. Most cannot rightly be said to have a gender identity either. Dragon monarchs, consorts, and drakes all have the ability to change their biological sex at will, though such changes are usually triggered by need. A gender change is a conscious choice, not an automatic process. It is also not instantaneous, though no instance of draconic gender change has been timed, so the length of the process is unclear. Its purpose, however, is clear. True dragons will change their gender to procreate if corresponding mates are not available. Asexuality and intersexuality are also options. All worms, for example, that's WYRMS, worms in Fartherall are the draconic humanoid people, the rank and file lizard folk, as it were. All worms, for instance, are born without gender. The only set gender preferences seems to be female for monarchs. This is presumed to be because the psychic link between a monarch and its worms is stronger when the worm's eggs have been laid by the monarch rather than one of their consorts. Of course, with the ability to change biological gender at will, a monarch could lay the eggs themselves and then switch back to male or intersex or whatever else they prefer. Since there are no outward physiological differences between draconic genders, draconic sex is hard to identify, and it's not like they're about to let anyone get close enough to ask. Dragon's breath. All true dragons possess a breath weapon, a deadly exhalation of billowing destruction. While fire is the most common form of breath weapon, and folks can be forgiven for thinking all dragons breathe fire, it is not the only form a dragon's deadly breath can take. A dragon's breath weapon expels whatever is most destructive to life in its environment. For most terrestrial dragons, indeed, that is fire, which is remarkably lethal to most forms of carbon-based life. While fire is then effectively the default, it is not the only form draconic breath weapons can take. Far from it. Aquatic dragons have been recorded exhaling blasts of electricity, torrents of steam, or pressure waves that stun and kill. Subterranean dragons have been observed breathing poisonous gases or showers of acid. According to the Ord, a common breath weapon among exodragons is, quote, the emission of ionizing radiation, whatever that means. The dragon itself is said to breathe oblivion. Worm broods. Another misconception about terrestrial dragons is that multiple species of dragon exist. While there are dragons of every stripe and hue, neither color nor plumage indicates a difference in species. Dragons are not differentiated by breed, but by brood. A colony of dragons, called a worm brood, is unique, with each displaying its own coloration and plumage. Bit of terminology here. Rather than feathers, draconic plumage refers to a specimen's brood-specific horn arrangement, scale morphology, and other distinguishing features, though some tropical broods have been known to sport feathers. To non-dragons, broods are most often classified according to a brood's coloration or territorial range, the blood brood, or the coastal sage flock, the raven-black lounge, etc. By the way, you know what the official plural for a group of lizards is?
No.
A lounge.
Wow.
Isn't that fun?
Wow.
I thought I was being trolled, but I found it on multiple scientific sites. A group of lizards is called a lounge. Anyway, back to plumage. Coloration within a worm brood is based on that. No, there will probably not be an audiobook, at least not one read by me. Coloration within a worm brood is also not set and can change over time or even within a single generation. Often, coloration and plumage are a form of camouflage, a reflection of a region's plant life or geographical hues. The brood's diet can also be a factor, as can the persistent use of a preferred key of magic, which leads to arcanocalcifications in the scales, dragons literally glittering with microdeposits of arcanocyte. The most common way a brood changes colors, however, is by the devouring of dragonkin from a rival brood, which leads to a mixing of hues almost as if you're mixing paint. No brood stays the same color forever. Socially, worm broods are the draconic equivalent of nations, hive-like city-states centered around worship and protection of the monarch. No two broods are alike, even those that inhabit the same biome, and broods grow or contract as broods grow or contract, their basic nature can change. One brood can often grow into and absorb another, which usually involves violence and ingestion. Like nations, broods can also fracture, migrate, and die out, with the survivors of a fallen brood ceasing to resemble their ancestors after only a few generations. I do hope we'll have an editor for this project.
You want an editor? That's funny.
Succession. The event most likely to change a brood's identity is the death of its monarch. The nature of a monarch's death has a profound impact on the continuation of the brood. If the monarch should be killed by the monarch of a rival brood, the victorious monarch will likely devour the slain rival's worms and mate with their surviving consorts to produce a new generation of worms with the victor's coloration. If the monarch were killed by a non-draconic outsider, say by an intrepid band of heroes, their surviving consorts would most likely fight with one another for dominance, with the victor emerging as the new monarch. This new monarch would then devour the brood's worms to remove all traces of the previous monarch's line. They will then either change gender or force their defeated consorts to change gender and mate with them to repopulate the brood under their new lineage with slight changes in coloration and appearance. If, however, the monarch were killed by its own consorts, which does happen, the surviving consorts will fight until only one remains to take up the mantle of monarch. In worm brood civil wars, the worms typically take the side of whichever consort sired them. The victorious consort will become the new monarch and devour any worms loyal to the vanquished foes. They may even devour their own worms to remove traces of the previous monarch's line. If no other consorts survive the civil war to mate with, the new monarch will advance drakes into consorts to create the breeding stock to lay a new clutch. If the monarch were killed by their own worms, a rarity, but one that has been known to happen, the consorts will likely fight each other for the role of monarch while also attempting to wipe out the Godslayer worms. And the worms, if they were crafty enough to slay their own monarch, likely had a plan to deal with the consorts as well. Any such event is likely to change the coloration and plumage of a brood as a new monarch takes primacy. One will note that each of these examples involves a monarch being killed, not dying of old age or disease. Dragon monarchs are amortal, not immortal, amortal. They do not age and are immune to disease. They are the draconic equivalent of demigods. Age and time do not touch them, just as they do not touch their eggs. Dragon monarchs can be killed, but they will never die on their own. Little sidebar. In the Gods and Religions section, we have a description of the the stages of mortality. There are 5 of them, theoretically 6. The first one is mortal. That's you and me. The step up from that is ageless, which is what the elves are. They will die. They can be killed. They can have diseases, but basically they will hit adulthood and then just kind of hover there for the entirety of their lives. Beyond ageless is immortal.
Mm-hmm.
Immortal is where we do begin to see some. They're not going to die. Age won't kill them. They're more resistant to disease. They can be killed, but they're going to recover from most forms of violence. Stuff that a broken neck, an immortal will recover from.
Sure.
Cut their heart out, it might regrow. There are ways to kill an immortal, but it's difficult. Step up from that is amortal.
Mm-hmm.
Will recover from. That's the level of angels or demons or demigods. There, even if the physical form is destroyed, it can sometimes come back. Or maybe that's the final. The final stage is undying, which is that of the gods. Beyond that is the theorized 6th step, which is eternal. Okay. Always was, always were, always will be. So dragon monarchs are effectively dragon demigods on the world.
Well, I want to just jump briefly into this question about
Sure.
Specifically about the gods, because of course we've been doing the JourneyQuest Most Victorious Character.
Yes.
And we've already within that had the fans vote. Apparently, the assassin killed Vieras. And I'm curious from a story perspective how you would begin to justify that. How could that actually be pulled off within our canon literature here?
If we go down to navigating the Hopjockey universe, Oblivion.
Tell me more.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Let me see. All right. I just want to make sure that I have this, if this is the right section for it.
Okay.
Let's go to True Death.
Okay.
Oblivion. Like energy, consciousness cannot be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
It can be changed, however, elevated, relegated, scattered, reformed. It is actually a strong argument for the oversoul of consciousness persisting in some form after corporeal death. Blah, blah, blah. From nothing to nothing.
You can go back to read the missing parts that he skipped over.
Yes. That's true. I'll start here, from nothing to nothing. The omniverse, creation, was matter sprung from nothing, but it was a tangible nothing, an aggressive nothing, unconscious chaos that resented being put into form, and through entropy fights to return to formlessness. Inspired by an essay on entropy I read from a friend of mine in college.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Oblivion is the true form of nothing. The verb obliviate means to erase from existence, to kill the soul or oversoul, to make something never have been. Oblivion, thus, is true death for mortals, gods, and their worlds. From nothing we came, and to nothing we may return. Manifestations of oblivion. Oblivion shards. When creation hatched, shattering the nothing that encased it, pieces of the shell rained down across the newborn omniverse. These pieces became oblivion shards, jagged bits of condensed unmatter. Unmated, stupid autocorrect.
We should fix that now.
I should. Unstuck in time, they fell down through creation like deadly rain. Underworld rivers, like the river Oblivion, owe their memory-wiping qualities to oblivion shards.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Many landed in these rivers and dissolved, imbuing their waters with obliviating qualities. A sip will wipe the memory. A gulp will dissolve the soul. Immersion, it is said, is enough to erase a god.
So the assassin could
drag Vieras to the underworld and dunk him in the river?
Clearly what happened.
That's clearly what happened in this game.
I know that we have the big question that's coming up as we're getting into our final matches here. Glorian has teamed up with the Sword of Fighting.
Of course he has.
The Sword of Fighting...
That's a good plot point. We should put that into the new season.
Right? I believe the Sword of Fighting actually got more votes, so has taken over what remained of Glorian's mind. But their next matchup and this will determine who will move on to the finals, is against Death. So I'm curious, from your perspective, Glorian plus the Sword versus Death, who actually stands a chance?
Oh man, I don't want to put my thumb on the scales.
Well, let me put it this way: it's almost certain that people are going to vote for Glorian because they love
Because they love
him.
Glorian.
So if you need to put a thumb on the death scales,
Let me put it this way. Glorian and Death fight with very different tactics and on very different timelines. Glorian is very much a creature of the moment.
okay.
Death existed before time. She has infinite patience.
Mm-hmm.
What is time to a god?
So should I read that as you saying Glorian has no chance?
I mean, it depends on how much he annoys the pale lady. Ultimately, all she has to do is wait 60 years or so, and she wins. So, I mean,
That's a very good point. I know our other final matchup is going to be so the Ren and Perf team up just defeated the Oracle and Karn.
wow,
To my surprise.
he didn't see that coming.
No. And they're next going up against Caro,
Ooh,
which means that we're in a situation
hard.
where the final matchups, like we could end up with Death versus Caro. We could end up with
the whole series is Death versus
we
Kira.
could end up with Glorian and the Sword versus Ren and Perf.
We
which
already
feels
saw that
right.
scene. That was the final scene of season 3.
So I mean, part of me is kind of wondering, well, maybe we need Caro versus Caro versus Glorian and the Sword,
Caro versus Glorian and the Sword. Now that would be an interesting scene, wouldn't it?
right? We haven't seen that yet.
No, we haven't.
So yeah, we've gone quite a ways. Yeah. So you think Caro is gonna take out Perf and Ren?
I think Ren will win. I don't think the fans will let
anyone else.
will let Ren fail.
Well, and now that Ren kind of dragged Perf's body along with her, so.
Which she could use to as a weapon, as a bait.
Right. Exactly. He's already dead, or Perf is dead. Maybe he distracts the Pale Lady. Will Ren,
Might be.
if Death makes it. We'll find out. I want to get to a couple questions.
Sure, yeah, hit me.
I took a break while you were reading and checked in
So did
on...
I, mentally.
Yeah, right? I checked in on YouTube. Cooking with Caro, there is more coming.
was hilarious.
Andy is hard at work on more. Brian was in the studio yesterday and chatted. They've shot 2 more recipes. The
Fantastic.
pineapple tarts and the raspberry scones, I believe.
Nice.
And this time they actually dared to eat them. Little Serembe asks, what program are you using up in that screen?
I have it's a fantastic writing program called Scrivener,
Yeah.
which was recommended to me by Matt Forbeck, who's written, I believe, all of the novels. It is a writing program. You can find it for $45. I've downloaded it to both of the computers I work on. And what's grand about it is, it has a lot of the features that many sort of novel writing programs have. Let me see if I can switch views here. You can do sort of a cork board. Let me get a better look there. A note card view, so you can move your layout around easily to just play with different things. It's got a lot of great outlining features. But what's great, what it has that's sold me on it, was it breaks the mentally daunting task of writing a massive manuscript into little pieces.
Yeah.
So instead of looking at this and going, oh God, how do I write a 90,000 word novel? It's, oh, this section is 1,500 words. I can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, this next section is 1,800. I can do that. Oh, I have a chapter now.
Yeah. And it has a little, you can actually keep a little pop-up at the bottom that has your word count, so you can track your
I
progress.
had to turn that off. So it's over. I
yeah.
use it every month, actually. One of the things that's cool about it is you can also use it to compile and in your drafts into EPUB files, which is one of the things I do on my Patreon for monthly fiction. Is I can spit out little ebooks.
Well, I've used it. I used it to build everything for Gamers the Series.
Oh yeah.
Because I could use the note cards. I don't write my script in there, but to get kind of all the plot points and make sure that it all fits. And then I also smartly started writing a new novel while about when I started running this Kickstarter campaign.
Very smart.
So I'm looking forward to getting back to that daily word count, not this week.
And I think there is a screenwriting template in Scrivener. Isn't
Oh,
there?
no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't looked. But yeah, it's a great program. I've used it for years too.
Highly recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those cases where if you're serious about doing this, also you can pop it up. You can go full screen, so you can only see what you're writing, and it eliminates distractions, and I love that too.
Here's a question. Who would win in a fight between Glorian and Snowball after Glorian called him a bunny? That's a tough one. I mean, Snowball, of course, is the manifestation of a guardian constellation sworn to protect the child goddess. I think he'd take Glorian down. If it's just Glorian, and Glorian does not have the sort of fighting, then with his mighty gardening spade and throwing carrots, Snowball, the rabbitkin, would destroy Glorian Orc Slayer.
I think that is some of the most important information we've heard all day. We have a new question from Miranda Seals. Can I ask a random question for the Ask the Oracle quest? Does that question count? Is it too late to ask the Oracle? Have I run out of questions?
Yes, no, yes, yes.
Should have answered that last one.
Damn it.
If you do have the Ask the Oracle reward that you've pledged for, I think only between 4 and 11 people have pledged for that on the Kickstarter, and you know they're going to ask you questions. But everyone
yes, they are.
at
And I do have to put the dress on. 314. Woohoo.
Yeah, everyone. Oh, look at that! That's amazing.
So now we're 10K away from the we're in a great position goal for the day.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way: at the end of JQ3, at the end of this day on JQ3, we were at 289.
So we're already $25,000 past where we were at this point when it looked like we wouldn't make it on JQ3.
Yeah,
So we've still got a long way to go, but the trend is very promising.
Yeah. As also email worked today for the first time in, like, we sent the email and it went to inboxes and Google marked it as important.
Not as promotions.
Yeah. So
that's
at least
impressive.
for some people. So and it clearly made a difference. Loads of pledges came in. So Miranda, those are the answers to your question. When Matt is formally putting on the dress to be the Oracle for the Kickstarter rewards, I do want to be clear. You will get 3 questions, and Matt, my hope is that you will do everything possible to trick people out of their questions.
Oh, without hesitation or remorse.
Yeah, you're going to have to work hard at this, and I would not ask us any questions about how that reward is going to work, because you never know what's going to count. Do the best you can to stump him, but he's going to do the best he can to stump you.
I sat in this chair and dealt with chat for 18 hours of gaming. I can handle 11 questions or 11 rounds of questions.
Now, it's all the 250 level and up too includes, so that's another 200.
All right, I'll wear my cleats.
All right, let's see. We do need to wrap it up pretty quickly here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I love E.T. the Extraterrestrial. It's on my top 10 of movies of all time, and I think John Williams' score for that film is one of the best film scores ever written. I love that score so much that I went in and I learned it by heart and rearranged it into a 25-minute suite for pipe organ, which I played at a benefit concert years ago. Like, I know that score inside out because I had to figure out how to rewrite it for that. It was a pipe organ that had chimes built in as well, so it could ring bells at certain points.
Oh, wow.
Like bum bum ba ba bum 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 bum.
That's marvelous.
Yeah. Anyway, so last March, the Seattle Symphonies did a live performance of the score with the movie. And I was all set to drive down to Seattle for it, and there was a blizzard and it didn't happen. It has been rescheduled for tonight. I'm taking a break from the campaign. I'm going to go watch one of my favorite movies and my favorite scores with a live symphony playing it, and I'm going to cry a lot, and this campaign is just going to have to survive for a few hours without me. So go pledge so I have a nice surprise. If I can see it through the tears afterward. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's one of the best. Back before aliens were all trying to kill us.
Yeah, well, I think we've been working through many different things trying to kill us in films for a long time. There's been a whole lot of existential dread, and we're only going to get more of it. I don't want... Some of our streams have gone really dark. I don't want to go there with this one. So I'm just going to point out to Matt that the Chibi-chan head is right over there. Which is something nice to think about. Did you just refresh that number?
I did.
Okay.
I'll do it
So-
again here.
It won't have changed. No. Okay. So 314, 380. We're not going to send a second email today. We got, I'd say, a good 8-hour boost.
That was a great boost.
Yeah. From that, we'll reach out again tomorrow. We'll reach out again Friday. I know it's a lot of contact, but some people will not pledge until they see that it is the final day and that it really matters. Some people won't pledge until they get their paychecks. There are a whole lot of reasons people wait until the end, and we just have to trust that the passion is there and that the math isn't lying to us, and that on the last day, I mean, yeah, we are we're under $116,000 away from our goal. We've raised $314 already. Obviously, if we don't hit our target, we get nothing. That is how Kickstarter works. No money has been collected. Sometimes people come back to us when on those rare occasions when campaigns fail and say, "What'd you do with all that money that you collected and you didn't make the shows?" We didn't get any money.
Wow.
People should read.
Yeah, but
mean,
reading is a great way to learn available knowledge.
It's true. But whether you're reading or not, whether you're watching or not, that is 4,226 people who have jumped in already. I believe our original number on Renewed GQ, that list, we asked for 4,200 signups,
Wow.
and so we've now exceeded exceeded that number. That is a lot of people who believe in JourneyQuest, and we have to remember when people complain. Just look at that number
just
too.
Psychologically, the
Yeah.
number of people who complain are a fraction of the people who love the show.
Yeah.
And the human brains are wired to remember the negative comments.
Well, and I think brains are also, it's very easy to get our brains into a point where we see and expect the worst of other people.
Yeah.
And, we run what we do, everything we do is based on expecting the best of other people. None of this would work if we expected the worst of people. We wouldn't even start.
No.
This works because we expect the best. And when people, and I think a lot of the complaints that come through come when people are missing information or they're expecting the worst and they make assumptions. Like we had someone in the YouTube comments who was saying, don't believe what they're saying, not everything is available for free. They want to make you pay eventually. And the truth of the matter is, and I'm going to explain exactly how this works so we have real information. When we release a new show, number one, we're going to release it to our Kickstarter and our Patreon supporters.
Yes.
They're going to see it before anyone else. We are going to make it available, and the platform where we will show it to them is the Fantasy Network. This is the platform that we built to make it easy to get the content to you. If other people decide that they want to see the film at that time, they can get a subscription to the Fantasy Network and watch it behind the paywall.
Where would they get a subscription and how much does it cost?
They would go to the fantasy.network and it costs $4.99 a month. However, they can also, once we have had that window for our backers and the people who literally make these shows possible, and I think that it is hugely important that we give that window to the people who make the show possible.
Of course.
Then it goes to Amazon Prime. And
I've heard of them.
yeah, following Amazon Prime, it goes to YouTube and it goes to free on the Fantasy Network. So if you've looked for a show that just came out and on TFN, the Fantasy Network, chances are it asked you for a subscription. Go back in a couple months. It will be free. You will be able to watch it. That is the best way that we've come up with currently to make sure that we are respecting the people who put in the support and that we are able to to bring in some revenue on Amazon Prime. For example, Amazon is what brought in the money that let us pay Matt to write JQ4 and JQ5.
Which I appreciate it. And I mean, from
Amazon and Patreon. It was a combination of the two.
And from a writer's perspective, being able to write both seasons of the show, the final 2 seasons back to back, while the memories are still fresh, and working out production realities with the producers as we went, made such a huge difference.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, like the Pale Lady, like Death, if you do not want to spend any money, if you do not want to pledge, if you do not want to support, you will still be able to watch the show for free. And the only thing you will have to spend is time. Now, we also on this campaign set it up so that we know that we have fans who, we did a survey, and we heard of people who were not backing this season. And what we heard over and over again is, I love this show and my financial life went to hell.
That's been happening.
It's happening a lot, and we've heard a lot of, I don't want to get political, but there's a reason that we are hearing so many tragic stories in this company about people struggling. We have people who are struggling with cancer. We have people who are struggling with kids who are sick. We have people who are losing their houses. We have people who have lost their jobs. So many members of our community who have struggled. And and we knew that some people didn't have money but had time, so we set this campaign up so that people could put in time, and we would make sure that they would get a download of this. But at the end of the day, look, if you are in a place where you cannot pledge, where even $1 is too much, where you are counting the pennies to keep yourself fed, seriously, send us a message and we will just give you a subscription to the Fantasy Network so you can watch our stuff. We're not doing this because the money is an expression of the community.
Yes.
So, if you're making $100,000 a year and you don't want to pledge because you want to watch it for free, we're just going to laugh at you because you can wait. But fans come in all. It's a whole spectrum. We expect that, like I said earlier, we expect the best of people. This whole thing is based on expecting the best, and if you reach out to us, we don't even have to have questions asked. We will just make sure you're able to watch the show if you let us know that you're not able to. So
just reach out. We can have the conversation. We'll work something out.
Yeah. This is a community that has gone through amazing work to rescue other members of the community who would have experienced homelessness otherwise, rescue members of the community fighting medical issues. When we do crowdfunding, I'm getting on my pedestal here. When we crowdfund, what we're doing is practicing collective action to achieve a common goal. We are more powerful when we are together, whether we are funding a little web series or whether we are trying to help a member of our community who's struggling with whatever issues they're struggling with. And I somehow managed to get through that without talking about the differences between living in the United States and living in Canada.
They are significant.
It is the only reason, like right now, Narita and I are both working full-time for Zoe. And the only reason we're able to do that is because living in Canada, we can afford healthcare. We don't have to have one of us maintaining a soul-killing job for the privilege of being able to see a doctor. We can afford to pay the monthly premiums for extended healthcare as well because it's a system that's based on actually taking care of people. So, there. I'll just put it that way. If you feel strongly about such things, go get involved in politics and use collective action to make a difference in your real world. Okay, so that is JourneyQuest. We are at 314,855. We're almost to 315. 4,230 backers. Matt, do you have any last things that you would like to share before we call it a day?
I mean, I can't do what you do. I don't know how you manage to put this in every day.
I go home and I cry.
Social media presence, answer all the questions. I am not a a talker by nature. I'm a big introvert. I prefer this,
Yeah.
where I can craft everything and get it close as perfect as possible before letting it out into the world. And so I retweet and I signal boost a lot rather than posting my own materials. Because a lot of times what's been said has been enough, and I don't need to add as a member of every privileged demographic in this society, don't really need to have anything new to add other than to amplify.
I mean, you're not a stockbroker.
Well, that's true. For this project, though, for JourneyQuest, what it's meant to me is that I think I can tie directly into the quality of my life now from the beginnings of this project. It's the project that allowed us to come back home.
Yeah.
It's the project that led to the best job I ever had with working in the video game industry in Seattle. It's the job that allowed us to have children, really, this project. It made that possible. And so I mean, it's deeply a part of who I am and what I love. And I love this community that has embraced this show and all the people who make it. And honestly, I thought when we started this live cast, talking a bit about how in 2008 I had five different projects in various stages of development that looked like they were going to go forward, and all of them fell through. And what I haven't shared is I was done after that. We were going to come home, and I was going to find some job to pay off the student loans and start life up here. But I figured, you know what, I'll do one final thing. And that one final thing was JourneyQuest. And because of the community you built and the business plan you put together and the vision you've had since Demon Hunters, figuring out how to kickstart 15 years before Kickstarter was a thing, I'm living my dream. That I am living my best possible life. And I have you to thank for that.
Well,
And I have you to thank for that.
Look at those numbers. It's this community.
It doesn't even seem real.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it's
it's taking that risk on seeing the best in people.
15.
Amazing. So, yeah, I'm glad we're here. Matt, you and I were talking beforehand about some of the pie in the sky stuff that we're trying to bring in. There's no guarantee, but we're pursuing every avenue that we have. I know it's easy to look at this and think, wow, they're just kind of being lazy and going to Kickstarter instead of going and getting that sweet Netflix cash.
And then we'd be canceled after our second season.
I mean, and I think people underestimate how incredibly difficult it is to, like, I was within a day of having a show greenlit on the Sci-Fi Channel. Literally, all the pieces were in place. It was going to be a phenomenal budget. We were going to be able to shoot in Seattle, employ people at real rates. We were within a day. We were to the point where the head of the channel was going to sign the dotted line, and we were going to start doing it. And the advertising team came back from trying to sell traditional ads and said, we're freaked out about digital, and NBC, not just across Sci-Fi, across the whole thing, just killed, they killed their entire digital slate for that year. Like, everything got killed. I was within a day of that happening, and that was a year of work. So it's like, you put a year of work and passion and rewrites and meetings. I flew to New York, did all the things. You've gone through this too.
Oh, that one of the
Many
projects
times,
you alluded to in 2008. We were within a meeting or two of having a show on TV, on AMC.
Yeah.
A zombie show before The Walking Dead that they were going to premiere as part of their 10 Days of Horror movie marathon when they had their highest views of the year. This is we had financing, we had Canadian production, it went all the way back to the East Coast. Everyone on the West Coast approved of it, went back to East Coast for approval, and the head of production basically said no because they couldn't get their head around the idea of zombies on television. 18 months later, The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
was on that same channel.
Yeah. And that's and the thing about Kickstarter, I know we're going over a little, but I think this is
That's
important.
fine, yeah.
My bus doesn't leave for a few more minutes. The thing about we only have so much time in our lives, and I mean, you and I are now into our 40s.
There we are.
We have to choose how we spend our time, and I know so many people who've gone out and made brilliant pilots and then have spent the last 3, 4, 5 years shopping that one pilot around, trying to find someone to sign on and do it. Is it possible? Yes, but what you don't see out there is the 99 other shows, or the 999 other shows that are awesome and qualified, that could make it, that never get that green light. And you know, we continue to pursue those other opportunities, but if we said we are only going to do that, you know, we would still be sitting here after JourneyQuest Season 1. We'd be 8 years later and we still wouldn't have the funding.
Nope. The reason we go to Kickstarter and the reason we don't go with the studio method is because it gives us the freedom to pursue our own projects on our own timeline and tell the kinds of stories within those frameworks that the studio system would reject, that advertisers would reject, that would never get past.
And if
approvals.
you know, if we get to a point where something is possible, if they can work with us and they can work with our model, fantastic. I think we'll say yes in a heartbeat after our attorney tells us it's okay.
Only proven it's worked for the last 10 years.
Right? But you know, just because we don't have a show out there doesn't mean we haven't tried. And we have to balance the time we put into that with the time that we put into actually producing content and telling these stories.
Well, consider that the visible finished productions that you have seen from Dead Gentleman and Zombie Orpheus are the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more in development, so many more projects that got shelved or crippled or hobbled or broken apart or parts stolen from and integrated into other pieces below the surface that could emerge if the circumstances were right.
Yeah.
Like, you're only seeing the projects that have survived.
I have no doubt between us, and then you add in Dawn, you add in Gabriel, you add in Samara, you add Nicole.
You add in Joanna.
You add in, you put all of us together, we have more than enough stories in us to last multiple lifetimes. And right now we get to tell those stories because of your support. If we reach the point where we're able to do more, fantastic.
Absolutely will.
In fact, I'm heading out. Well, here's another thing for you. So, more motivation. The week after this Kickstarter ends, I'm heading to New York. I'm speaking at a big web television convention on several panels. I'm going to be talking with people and interacting with people from Netflix and HBO and other places. Wouldn't it be nice if I could show up and say, oh yeah, we just raised $430,000 for our show last week on Kickstarter. That, because for so many of these people, when they hear money, they start to pay attention, and that is a great foot in the door. Right. So
well,
if
not
you,
just money, but you can also say that's not a fluke. This would be the third project over 400K. In fact,
that's a pattern then.
Zombie Orpheus was the first production company to land a Kickstarter project above $400,000. Broke that barrier.
Briefly.
On Gamers 3, Hands of Fate became Kickstarter's top raising.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, for 36 hours before Charlie Kaufman's animated short film topped it. And then, of course, the celebrity filmmakers came in and started landing things in the low millions. But for 36 hours, we held a record.
Exactly. And I think the other thing we struggle with that's related to this is it's hard to show the amount of work that we put in. Like you know, because we're working so hard, and Matt and I are both introverts, this is so hard doing this every day.
Which is why I avoid it and let him do it every day.
But we're constantly working on, because we're not willing to half-ass it.
No,
especially when it comes to the shows. Whoa, we went up again.
315, almost
That's
315.5.
Yeah. So, I think we've made the point. Again, we want to. If you're curious about the finances, how it all works, we did a huge live stream. You can find the link in the Kickstarter main page that goes through all the finances and the structure and the strategy behind our campaigns. so that you can transparently see exactly why and how we make this work. We've seen Matt's process here. We've had a long talk about this. Our goal is to be transparent, to be ethical, to be open with you, and that's part of the expecting the best of everyone. We expect it of ourselves, we expect it of you, and that commitment has led to success so many times. So I know I asked you for last words 20 minutes ago. You get 10 now, and then we're going to end the stream.
10. Okay. So, I want to preface this by saying this is an analogy I've used before.
And you exceeded 10.
Seconds? I thought it was minutes.
Oh, sorry. No, I meant 10 words.
Oh, 10 words.
No,
Oh,
go
I
ahead.
see.
Go ahead.
You
There's
didn't give
nothing
me the
better than
metric.
watching Matt spin his words on the preface. Okay, you get a second chance.
All right. Try and see. Okay. Edit. Truncate. Knifey. Okay.
You just spent them again.
Damn it!
One more.
One more. You want to see season 4. Everything we've been setting up for the past 3 seasons comes to its own culmination in season 4. Season 4 is when the series stops expanding and begins contracting, and where all the separate threads begin to interweave into one storyline in 5. And that is where all the resolutions lie. That is where all of the secrets will be revealed. That is where you will know whether your predictions were correct or not.
I will tell you, in the thousands of comments we've read, one person out there correctly identified the narrative key that you set up that pays off in season 5.
Tell me when this is off.
Yeah.
Make sure it's off.
But we've made it very clear that we're not going to say which of those thousands of speculations it was.
All right.
But there was only one. All right. We good?
We're good?
Awesome. We're going to switch over to our ending screen, and then be very, very quiet while I go and turn off the machine.
3:15.5. Whew.